Very good evening. You're watching Super Saturday Debate. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. Now, as the assembly election draws near in Tamil Nadu, political temperatures are already rising. Union Minister Piyush Goyal, in an exclusive conversation with CNN News18, has in fact already set the tone for the elections, decisively ending rumours of an NDA-TVK alliance. Remember, Mr. Goyal is also BJP's Tamil Nadu election in charge, and he has described actor Vijay at best as a vote cutter, not a king, stressing that no political alliance with TVK is possible. Mr. Goyal has also added that while many film stars have entered politics in the past, they have failed to sustain their influence. On the BJP-led alliance with the AIADMK, he said it could have a dream home run in Tamil Nadu and lashed out at DMK leader Udayanidhi Stalin, this over what he called an anti-Sanatan stand. Mr. Goyal has asserted that people are fed up with Stalin's government and expressed confidence in forming the NDA government in Tamil Nadu. This comes after Vijay earlier struck a combative political tone in Tamil Nadu, declaring that neither the ruling DMK nor the opposition AIADMK deserved to govern the state, and asserting that his party was ready to take them on without any alliances. So with alliances in flux and political calculations underway, the big question remains, could Tamil Nadu see a three-way contest this election? We'll take that up with our guests in just a bit.
I don't think it's a triangular contest. The contest is between the DMK alliance and the AIADMK-led alliance. You can be a vote cutter, you can probably win away a small portion of vote. People are frustrated with the misgovernance, corruption, and they will give a befitting reply to Mr. Stalin.
All right, let's introduce our sizzling panelists. Today I'm joined in by Sanju Verma, who's the national spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Mr. S. Muralidharan, who's a political analyst, also joined in by Rama Subramanian, who's a political analyst. Many thanks to you all for joining in. Mr. Muralidharan, first of all, being a vote cutter or being somebody who can only garner a small amount of votes, why isn't Vijay able to convince people that he's more than just being a vote cutter, or as many are calling him, just a disruptor?
Yeah, with due respect to Mr. Piyush Goyal, what I want to say, this is more of a sour grapes kind of comment from him. And all these days, they were waiting in the doorsteps to Vijay to sign a, agreement with them, which did not work out. So obviously it's sour grapes, and these comments are expected. And let's wait and see whether Vijay is really going to cut into vote or he is going to be the kingmaker.
No, I'm very curious to know why you call it a case of sour grapes, given that he's not really displayed any governance yet. He's still a political novice. What will it take for him to translate that fan base into votes? I'll tell you why, because you just need a lot more than just cult politics. And I'll give you one very interesting example, if you may permit. The national spokesperson of the TVK could not come on the show. Why? Because they had a meeting that they were addressing. So such is their machinery right now, days ahead of the assembly polls. What is one to expect out of a governance machinery then?
What is wrong in somebody attending a meeting? I think that shows how serious.
So they do not have enough spokespersons for a prime time national debate.
Yeah, that's not required. We are contesting election in Tamil Nadu, not in the whole of India. That's one. Second is, as I said, the DMK and ADMK has a bigger, fascist, draconian DMK government to worry about than trying to, taking a dig at TVK. The fact is, the last 4.5 years been a absolutely dismal rule of DMK. The law and order is in shambles, and there are many things even for the union government to worry, because drugs are rampant and extrajudicial killing. The custodial deaths, and there are so many instances here. And these things have to be looked in. And they have a bigger, worry because the DMK has amassed close to some 4.5 lakhs worth of, money by illegal mines, etc. So BJP and ADMK has a bigger thing to worry about than taking a dig at TVK. And TVK has been very clear. TVK, though even the Congress were knocking at TVK's doors, and BJP also were knocking at the doors of TVK. But,
all right. So, Sanju
Vijay
Verma, the
stayed
biggest
straight.
defense that's been coming in from TVK supporters and their party members is that, we are being quoted by both fronts, whether it is the NDA or, say, the DMK. And many are also saying that why can't there be somebody else apart from an MGR and Jayalalitha? In fact, the BJP has been constantly referring to that legacy of Jayalalitha. And why can't we expect Vijay to bring back that legacy now?
Akanksha, first and foremost, am I audible loud and clear?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Let's get one thing very clear. Vijay is neither MG Ramachandran nor is Vijay J. Jayalalitha. And I will just give you the example of how Kamal Hassan, despite all the false bravado, lost the 2021 assembly elections from Coimbatore South to a novice and a greenhorn like Vanati Srinivasan, who's the National BJP Mahila Morcha head honcho. So, despite Kamal Hassan's so-called Thalaiva image, it did not really cut ice with the voters. And I'm sure Vijay's so-called larger-than-life persona is not going to resonate with voters either. And I'll give you specifically one reason. Just 6 days back, Vijay said, I am neither like, the corrupt DMK or the evil BJP. Well, Mr. Vijay, you are both evil, corrupt, and you are incompetent too. On the 27th of September 2025, there was a stampede at Karur, where over 41 people died under extremely unfortunate circumstances, and over 157 people were injured. What did our so-called Thalaivar Vijay do? He fled the scene. He promised 20 lakh to every kith and kin of the victims who lost their lives. He's not given out a single penny till now. He did not even have the courtesy to visit Karur after that. He called the kith and kin of the victims of the stampede to a resort in Mamalapuram and shed crocodile tears, and nobody's buying Vijay's, perceived competence. I just want to say one thing. The best hallmark of a leader is if he or she can stand with their electorate during times of stress, during times of, cheer and mirth. You need not stand shoulder to shoulder with your potential voter base. Why was Vijay missing when people in Karur needed a shoulder to cry on? And I will tell you something else without wasting too much time. The incident at Karur, Akanksha, happened on 27th September last year. By 29 September 2025, you had Nirmala Sitharaman, the Union Finance Minister. You had, Nagendra, of the Tamil Nadu BJP, who's heading it now post Annamalai. You had MOS Parliamentary Affairs, L. Murugan. You had Tejasvi Surya. You had Anurag Thakur. You had Member of Parliament Aparajita Sarangi. You had the entire BJP top brass landing in Karur to actually meet up with the aggrieved family.
So, Mr. Muralidharan, that is exactly the point that everybody is attacked him on with regards to the kind of fan base and fan following he had. He had all the more reasons to feel for his electorate, and today that's perhaps given more ammunition to the CBI now to go all guns blazing after him. Mr. Muralidharan.
You should always remember that 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Nainar Nagendran, the president of BJP, made a comment. The Karur incident was a sabotage by DMK. He pointed out at Senthil Balaji. Now that comes from the horse's mouth, and Vijay has nothing to do. 41 deaths. He was asked to leave the place considering the law and order situation by the police. That's the reason he left.
But now, Mr. Muralidharan, you do remember it was over 2 days that took him to finally break his silence. Not a word of sympathy for all of those lives that were lost.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's because the DMK government was, running helter-skelter and booking each and everyone in the TVK party. So obviously,
no, I think this is blind support. Let's not defend him at a time when he should have spoken up, perhaps even reached at the hospital where the injured were battling for their lives. I'm running short of time, Mr. Subramanian. I want to quickly bring you in on what Mr. Piyush Goyal has said with regards to the DMK's rampant corruption and, more importantly, Udayanidhi Stalin's anti-Sanatan remarks. We've seen the kind of migrant killings that have been happening. What has DMK been able to do to defend their case so far, giving more ammunition to, say, the likes of NDA members and especially BJP Tamil Nadu in charge Piyush Goyal now making that a point of moot point of his attack today?
Good evening, everyone. See, as far as Mr. Piyush Goyal statement is concerned, I agree with him that Mr. Vijay is not going to be the winner in the election. Many actors have played their role in the politics in Tamil Nadu, except MGR and Jayalalitha, all have failed miserably, and they have not even Kamal Hassan contested the election. And
so you agree that the DMK need not court Vijay, and you are good without Vijay's support?
No, I'm not. I mean, as far as Vijay is concerned, he is a player. He may get into the votes of some of the parties. I mean, it can be all parties because youngsters are attracted towards him. There is no doubt about it at all. But it does not mean that he is going to be a winner. He is not going to be the winner at all. He can only be a...
But how do you ensure that you become the winner given the corruption plaguing legacy that you're leaving behind and the kind of anti-Sanatan Dharma remarks we've seen coming from Udayanidhi Stalin?
See, as far as corruption is concerned, this is universal. It is not restricted to Tamil Nadu. It is not restricted to India. It is all over the world. There is a Transparency International Index.
Are you seriously going to give me that argument to justify the DMK corruption? Sanju Verma, 1 minute with Mr. Subramanian. I need to hear his response to that. That just because there's corruption all over the country, it justifies corruption in Tamil Nadu as well. Mr. Subramanian?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is universal. Let us be very honest about it.
Okay, I don't think there's anything beyond this. Now, if you're going to call it universal and normalize it, Sanju Verma.
No. Let me.
Can I please?
I'm going to come to you, Mr. Subramanian. I'm going to come to you.
Regarding Sanatana Dharma.
Can I please, Akanksha, can I please, sir, I did not interject you. Let me have my say. I think, Akanksha, one of the biggest negatives against the corrupt and incompetent MK Stalin-led DMK government is the fact that in a state which has more than 85% Hindu population, the deputy CM and the son of MK Stalin, Udayanidhi Stalin, compares Sanatan Dharma to dengue, malaria, rabies, COVID, and then has the audacity to say, I was not against Hinduism, you see. I am only against the caste hierarchy within Hinduism. And the Madras High Court has called out the bluff of Udayanidhi Stalin, quashing the FIR against Amit Malviya and clearly telling Udayanidhi Stalin, you did not simply call for the abolition, you called for the eradication of Hinduism. That was a hate speech, that was a genocidal call. And most importantly, remember this, that Udayanidhi Stalin's grandfather, MK Karunanidhi, in 2002 had called Hindus, they are a menace to civilized society, they are thieves. And what did Kanni Modi say? She's been repeatedly an MP from Thoothukudi and one of the cousins of MK Stalin. She said, what is the need for protecting Balaji's hundis? If Balaji has so much power, why is Balaji's hundi being protected by the state's HRCE department? And what does the HRCE Minister P. Sekhara Babu do? He has done nothing but weaponize the HRCE department. And my final point is this. What did N. Ponmudi say? He was the higher education minister under MK Stalin. He said that was Ram an engineer? How do these Hindus talk about Ram Setu? And what did Senthil Balaji say? He said every Sanatani is basically uncivilized and these people, Hindus, are only good at selling son papdi. And what did, T.R. Balu say? He said, ye jo Hindu or Hindi speaking people hai na, they come to Tamil Nadu and they're only good at selling pani puris.
Okay.
So this is the demonization of Hindu.
I think
and Hindi
let's
people.
hear it from Mr. Subramanian, because Mr. Subramanian, it's not just an attack coming in, say, from Sanju Verma of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Even the Madras High Court has weighed in on this and called out the bluff of Udayanidhi Stalin. In fact, they have expressed their disappointment with the kind of anti-Sanatan remarks that have been coming out of the DMK, particularly from Udayanidhi Stalin's mouth.
No, I think these are all issues which are not going to be making impact in the electoral battle.
Mr.
Let me tell you,
Subramanian, how can you defend these kind of religious insensitivities just because, according to you, it's not going to matter during an electoral battle?
Yes, definitely not. Because earlier you mentioned about so many instances, like Dr. Karunanidhi has mentioned about, whether Ram was an engineer or not, or Kanimuri, or whatever it is. But these are all in public domain, and the people have simply ignored all these comments. Therefore, this is an issue that has happened about 3
I will tell you what's an issue. If
Nobody
you
is going
think
to bother
religion
about
is
these issues.
okay, just a second. If you think that religion is not an issue, Mr. Subramaniam, what explains when NEET was launched under the UPA regime, when DMK was very much in alliance with the Congress, and now DMK is making a fuss over NEET when they had already assured the students that they'll take it up formally. They have not been able to deliver on that assurance. What about the youth of today in Tamil Nadu then, if you think that religion can be placed aside?
Because it is the development that is going to be the most important issue in the coming
Is
election.
the issue of NEET not part of the development strategy for students and for the youth in the state?
Akanksha, can I quickly come in?
I am connected with the education also. This NEET issue is definitely a very big spoiler for the education system as such. This is not happening even in USA or UK. Nobody is giving selection on the basis of one all India examination like a NEET. SAT and ACT in USA, they are also considering so many other issues.
Okay, Sanju Verma,
Akanksha.
quick minute. I need to then wrap up.
I just have one thing to say. Udayanidhi Stalin, MK Stalin, their darbaris, when they come on national TV, Akanksha, they say, we have nothing against Sanatan Dharma. We are against the caste hierarchy within Hinduism. I want to ask MK Stalin, I want to ask A. Raja, are you all closet Christians? Why have you never condemned Christianity? There are more than 49,000 Christian denominations. The Church of England, the Protestant Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Methodist Church, the Oriental Orthodox Church, the Lutheran Church, the Mormon Church, the Pentecostal Church, the Baptist Church, the Adventist Church. You don't have the guts to condemn any other dharma or religion, but you take pot shots at Sanatan Dharma at the drop of a hat, and the voter in Tamil Nadu will not forget that you dared to impeach Justice G.R. Swaminathan for simply doing his job, for simply saying that the Deepam can be lit at the Deepathun, which has happened for 2000 years until that tradition was broken by M.K. Karunanidhi, then by his son M.K. Stalin, and God forbid, if DMK comes to power, which it will not, I'm sure Udayanidhi Stalin will carry forward the not so glorious tradition of demonizing Hindus again and again and again in a state, as I said, where more than 85% of the population is Hindus. And my final point is this: today, DMK-led MK Stalin is borrowing 67,000 crore from the RBI's WMA window every single quarter simply to stay afloat. Tamil Nadu has been thrown into the throes of bankruptcy by a corrupt Stalin dispensation. और सब याद रखा जाएगा.
All right.
और
So
जनता
let's hope. अगर आप कह रहे हैं जनता जवाब देगी, the Janta of Tamil Nadu should be able to be wise enough to choose what's best for them and choose politics that rises above religion, above divisive politics, and chooses the politics of development. Many thanks to you all three for joining in on the Saturday debate. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and that's all I have for you in this edition of the Super Saturday debate. Thank you so much for joining in. News and Updates continue. In fact, we have a big CNN News 18 exclusive with the Union Commerce Minister, Shri Piyush Goyal. Do tune in.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
India has just concluded the mother of all deals with Europe. And the architect of that deal, who came up with the formulation, ironically the first time actually, people forget that, is sitting with me, Minister Piyush Goyal. He needs no introduction. He's been the go-between Delhi and many capitals globally. Thank you very much, Mr. Goyal, for speaking to me. It's wonderful. This has been called a win-win deal. It's been called the mother of all trade deals. In plain terms, is this a win-win in intent or in trade balance terms?
I have always believed that every agreement can only be successful when both parties stand to benefit, both parties, people and their economies see gain in that. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has very clearly laid out a context in which we are negotiating our different free trade agreements. And the context is that we are looking for trading arrangements, particularly with like-minded, fair play, fair trading countries, democracies in most cases, countries which complement the Indian economy rather than become our competitor. For example, we've done 8 free trade agreements in the last 4 years. All of them are with developed countries. Not a single country with less than $20,000 per capita income. We covered 37 countries within these 8 trade deals. The 27 of EU, 4 European countries in EFTA, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Oman, UAE, and Mauritius. Now, all of these countries, the cost of manufacturing, cost of operations are significantly higher than India, given the differing levels of development. They have technology, they have innovation, they have products of a nature which are not yet made in India. They have huge amounts of pools of capital which they can invest in India. And therefore, with each one of them, we've drawn up a very fair, delicate balance, recognizing that unless it's good for both, it'll never be sustainable.
So you made an interesting point. You said if it makes trade logic for both sides. It took nearly 2 decades to conclude. Would this have happened without today's geopolitical churn?
Of course, this has nothing to do with the current day situation. After all, even we decided to go into the FTA in 21 at the India-EU summit at Porto. In mid-22, we launched negotiations. We've been negotiating 3.5 years.
But you were in power since 2014, so why this 7-year lag?
Because if you remember, the economy we inherited in 14 was a fragile 5 economy. It was a terrible mess. Growth was at 4%, double-digit inflation.
India's renowned economists, analysts, and policymakers will dissect every aspect of Budget 2026.
This budget should be a budget of consolidation.
The government to take steps which will generate large-scale employment in the country.
We need to really make changes fast, is to improve productivity in agriculture.
If you lower tax slabs, it'll help the middle class, you will put more money. In fact, the government must have its thrust on consumer spending as well as employment generation is most important for the government.
Watch them live on Budget Day, only on CNN News 18. Co-presented by SBI, the banker to every Indian. Truly, India's #1 camera phone. Co-powered by Tata Capital, Count on Us, ITBI Bank, Bank Aisa, Dost Jaisa, and SBI Life, अपने लिए अपनों के लिए. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
India has just concluded the mother of all deals with Europe. And the architect of that deal, who came up with the formulation, ironically the first time actually, people forget that, is sitting with me, Minister Piyush Goyal. He needs no introduction. He's been the go-between Delhi and many capitals globally. Thank you very much, Mr. Goyal, for speaking to me. It's wonderful. This has been called a win-win deal. It's been called the mother of all trade deals. In plain terms, is this a win-win in intent or in trade balance terms?
I have always believed that every agreement can only be successful when both parties stand to benefit. Both parties, people and their economies see gain in that. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has very clearly laid out a context in which we are negotiating our different free trade agreements. And the context is that we are looking for trading arrangements, particularly with like-minded, fair play, fair trading countries, democracies in most cases, countries which complement the Indian economy rather than become our competitor. For example, we've done 8 free trade agreements in the last 4 years. All of them are with developed countries. Not a single country with less than $20,000 per capita income. We covered 37 countries within these 8 trade deals. The 27 of EU, 4 European countries in EFTA, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Oman, UAE, and Mauritius. Now, all of these countries, the cost of manufacturing, cost of operations are significantly higher than India, given the differing levels of development. They have technology, they have innovation, they have products of a nature which are not yet made in India. They have huge amounts of pools of capital which they can invest in India. And therefore, with each one of them, we've drawn up a very fair, delicate balance, recognizing that unless it's good for both, it will never be sustainable.
So you made an interesting point. You said if it makes trade logic for both sides. It took nearly 2 decades to conclude. Would this have happened without today's geopolitical churn?
Of course, this has nothing to do with the current day situation. After all, even we decided to go into the FTA in 21 at the India-EU summit at Porto. In mid-22, we launched negotiations. We've been negotiating 3.5 years.
But you were in power since 2014, so why this 7-year lag?
Because if you remember, the economy we inherited in 14 was a fragile 5 economy. It was a terrible mess. Growth was at 4%, double-digit inflation. Our banking system was broken. If we had entered into free trade deals during that first term in office, do you realize we would have had to give up far more?
The world as we know it is fraying at the edges. Old rules are being written by executive fiat from the Oval Office. Global power is shifting away from the West, and supply lines are being drawn at warp speed as nations hedge their trade bets in a multipolar world. In this moment of global churn, like any other nation, India too finds itself at a crossroads. Courted or pressured by major powers, constrained by hard choices, and tested by uncertainty. Can India turn strategic autonomy into strategic influence? Can it convert economic promise into global power? And what does being the world's largest democracy mean when values long cherished seem increasingly sidelined globally? To unpack India's global moment, we are joined by one of the world's foremost thinkers on geopolitics, Mr. Fareed Zakaria. Mr. Zakaria, thank you very much for speaking to me. People sense that the world is becoming more unstable. Is the global order breaking down or just in some ways changing? And where does India fit into this new world, into this new jigsaw?
Gosh, that's it's a big question. I would say the world order is evolving. It is not breaking down. And it's important to to take a slightly more historical perspective than a lot of the breathless news analysis of the last week or two have taken. The fundamental shift in the world order that we have had since 1945 obviously took place first with 1989, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, and then the entire world almost moved to the kind of Western free market, open world economy. But after that, the biggest shift has been the rise of China. In the rise of China, you had a non-market economy, or the fundamentally non-market economy, that was entering the system and was not really willing to play entirely by the rules of the system. And that became much more clear once Xi Jinping became the leader of China. Xi Jinping gave a speech in 2015, so this was 1 year before Donald Trump was elected, in which he said it is going to be the paramount goal of China to reduce substantially, if not eliminate, its dependence on the West in all the leading technologies of the future. And he outlined the whole series of technologies that he wanted to lessen, if not eliminate, dependence on the West. Now, that kind of attitude for the second largest economy in the world is incompatible with globalization, with an open world economy where the idea is we're from everybody else, and everyone's mutual interdependence creates a kind of incentive for everyone to cooperate. Then you get Trump. And Trump has consistently wanted, in a sense, a mirror image of what Xi Jinping wants. And now you have the two largest economies in the world searching for strategic autonomy, searching for, kind of strategic security, supply chain reliability, and resilience. And so that is the new world order that is evolving. As I say, it's evolving because, you can't really do it as easily as people think. In the United States, to give you one example, 90% of the penicillin we import, the precursor chemicals come from China. 60% of all computer chips we buy still come from China, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a world that is deeply interdependent, but there is a layer now of strategic autonomy that countries are looking for. And to put it very briefly, I'm sure we'll talk about it more, India can play in this world and prosper in this world quite well.
Well, you said prosper in this world quite well. Would that mean that India, could we assume, is shaping events, or is still mainly a country reacting to them?
It is mainly a country reacting to them. India is not yet in the first tier in the sense of power, economically, militarily, and so it is a rule taker rather than a rule maker. But India's great strength is that it has always tried to maintain a certain degree of strategic independence and autonomy. So it has good relations with Russia. It has good relations with the United States. It has good relations with Europe. It has decent relations with China. They have gotten a little better. The reality is that kind of strategic autonomy, or the ability to freelance, is valuable in the world we're in today. I would have hoped that India and the United States could forge a kind of special relationship in which the United States, and this is certainly what the United States had been aiming for 25 years, was to develop a very special relationship with India, develop a kind of new relationship economically, technologically, politically, diplomatically. Unfortunately, Donald Trump is so erratic, unpredictable, unreliable, that it's entirely understandable that India has decided it needs more options. It needs the ability to hedge against the United States or away from the United States. It's something most countries are now searching for. And as I say, India already has, in a sense, developed those options with regard to China, with regard to other countries like Brazil, Indonesia, South Africa. So it comes naturally to India. India has that palette. It still remains true, though, that India needs a special relationship with the US if it is going to move up the value chain economically, technologically, if it wants to be really at the frontiers of technology and the frontiers of economic growth, it needs a better, a very close relationship with the US. And I still think that's possible. It will just be a more guarded relationship. It will be a relationship where India will retain certain autonomy and some options.
Right.
And frankly, that is largely because of the peculiar nature of Donald Trump's foreign policy.
No, so I'll come to that, but I just want to pick up from where you just left off. Yeah, strategic autonomy has been this leitmotif of our diplomacy over the last 10 years, especially under Narendra Modi. But is that becoming harder by the day to exercise? I mean, China is not a benign neighbor, as you know. The United States is at this moment behaving erratically with India, and sometimes from an Indian perspective, it looks even as if it is militating against India's interests. It's cozying up to Pakistan, for instance. There is also détente happening with China at some level, even though there is some sort of a shadow play going on there. I think you understand what I'm saying. There's talk of regime change in Bangladesh instituted by the United States deep state. I'm not getting into that because I don't have the facts and none of us do, but is it becoming difficult to continue down this strategic autonomy path that we've chosen for ourselves?
No, I think it actually makes it easier because the United States' erraticism and unpredictability mean other countries are also looking for those kind of relationships. You just saw that with the European Union signing this big trade deal with India. I think you'll find that Canada and India will be able to mend their relationship quite well if both sides are willing to do it. I think there will be better relations with China than they have in the past. It's never going to be warm and friendly, but I think they can be better. And I think even with the United States, the truth is Trump is a very strange character. And some of what he does seems entirely kind of impulsive, emotional, personal. So you never know. He might shift his ground as he shifted his ground toward Pakistan very suddenly and unpredictably. He could just as easily shift away. I don't think it is an enduring American strategy to do what Donald Trump is doing. I think that Donald Trump's successor will return to the strategy that has been in place since Bill Clinton. I think Trump, it's actually inexplicable why Trump has moved away from India. It's possible that he really is as annoyed about this whole business of the Nobel Peace Prize and wanting to take credit for the ceasefire, between India and Pakistan. It could be that Munir, who is a very savvy guy, has wooed him. It could be there's some crypto connection. In any event, it all feels very specific to Donald Trump. It is not an American shift. Most America, as you know, in Congress, India is, extremely positively viewed. In the public in general, India is very well regarded, and vice versa. I mean, I looked at recent poll numbers show that Indians remain very pro-American by and large. So I think that there's a much more enduring friendship that will last beyond the peculiarities of Donald Trump.
Here is a question that I must interrogate, because what you're saying sort of going against a lot of what some experts here believe, that Trump's tenure is not an aberration. The MAGA base will outlive Trump. Perhaps Trump is only the spout for their beliefs. He's only really the front-facing, at some level or the other, broadcaster of what they believe. And that fundamentally, there is a disconnect. And this disconnect is going to play out. It has also contributed, of course, to Delhi looking at Washington with a little bit more skepticism.
So there is some truth to that, in the sense that the MAGA base is, basically suspicious of foreigners. There's a certain degree of xenophobia. There's particularly toward Indian Americans, even because they've been very successful, and a certain maybe I don't know what, maybe resentment would be the right word, but certainly they view them less favorably. Until very recently, I'd say Indian Americans were kind of regarded as the poster children of good immigrants, assimilating, succeeding, working hard, all that kind of thing. The MAGA base, I think, views it somewhat differently. But in terms of foreign policy, the main drivers of MAGA foreign policy ideologically are more a kind of isolationism, a unilateralism, basically anti-Europe because they regard Europe as kind of a woke paradise, somewhat pro-Russian because they view Russia as a white Christian and non-woke nation, anti-Chinese. So India doesn't figure very largely one way or the other. And in the context of having an anti-Chinese policy, having stronger relations with India actually makes sense. I mean, Trump won, if you recall, the first term of Donald Trump was very much in that vein. Trump built on the strengthening ties with India. He and Modi got on very well, which is why I say this recent detour is a puzzle even to people in the administration, I can tell you, and certainly within the MAGA world. And I do think it relates a lot to Trump's personal idiosyncrasies. I think one cannot underestimate the degree to which Donald Trump really is obsessed with winning the Nobel Peace Prize and wants, powerful and important people like Modi to nominate him for it. You can see this. Trump is very transparent, when he gives speeches and he talks about how he dealt with the Swiss president on tariffs or how much he wants the Nobel Prize, that he railed against the Norwegian prime minister, even though that prime minister has nothing to do with it. You see, Trump's, in a sense, you're getting an X-ray of his id, ego, and superego all at the same time. And those are the things that motivate him a lot more than some kind of carefully calculated national strategic purpose.
So ego-fueled bombast. Okay, but how will Delhi react to DC from here on? Is this relationship going to be dogged by apprehension? Are all those Cold War phantoms going to sort of come right back and haunt once again the Indian foreign policy establishment for years?
I hope not, because those Cold War phantoms, and you correctly put them as phantoms, first of all, derive from the Cold War and the fact that India was largely supporting the Soviet Union in that Cold War, and supported it on everything, including things like Cambodia, which was very controversial. It also, I would point out, was betting on the wrong horse. I mean, the Soviet Union lost the Cold War, and so it was an unwise strategy, in my opinion, for India. It ended up backing the loser, the country that collapsed. But more importantly, there is no Cold War now, right? And so India, to the extent that there is a new Cold War, and I wouldn't use that analogy too strongly, it's going to be between America and China. And India is, in that context, on the right side of this one. So I don't think you're going to replay the Cold War. But will there be a certain distance created by Trump and his foreign policy? Will some of the warmth in the relationship that had been produced by successive American presidents and successive Indian prime ministers working together, cooperating more, aligning their worldviews more? Yes, unfortunately, that is the damage of Trump's foreign policy. It's not just being felt in India, it will be felt in Europe as well. But that doesn't mean India, India doesn't thrive or flounder entirely on the basis of how close it is to America. I think it would be better if it were closer, but India can forge an independent path quite easily.
So let me ask you, because you did refer to India's support of the Soviet Union on Cambodia and other controversial points in history, and pretty much the West has come around to think that how is it that a high-minded moral actor on the global stage could back Russia in the current context when it decides to sort of invade another sovereign country? And therefore, India, of course, when it's questioned, says, look, its Russia policy is practical. It's not ideological. It's not framed by any deep-seated love for Russia because Russia comes across as some morally correct power. Is that an honest assessment by New Delhi, or are ties dictated by strategic ennui? Let me use that word.
Look, I wish that India were a little more forthright about what is really, a violation of the core principles of the United Nations Charter and a very unusual invasion. There are very few since 1945 naked acts of aggression and conquest that the conqueror is then seeking to legitimize. If you think about it, you'd have to, there are very, very few cases where this has happened. And so India, as a important member of the UN and the world community, and if it wants to be a rule maker, should be taking a stronger position in my view. It doesn't mean it has to go all the way. It doesn't mean it can't have good relations with Russia. But I wish it did take a somewhat tougher line on this. But I think it is possible to be pragmatic, to be realistic, and say, look, we have a long-standing relationship with Russia, which we don't want to jeopardize entirely. There's certain practical realities of needing oil and things like that, which you could play on. And I think that it comes less out of that sense of strategic nostalgia and more out of a practical sense of the realities of the world today, all of which have been reinforced again by Donald Trump's foreign policy. He has made it less attractive to India to be pro-American and to back the Western position on this issue. He's made it more difficult for the West to hold a moral high ground to this regard with his intervention in Venezuela, which was not UN backed, not using international law as a justification, not putting together a coalition to gain greater legitimacy. And certainly it has been undermined by his bizarre talk about annexing Greenland, which in a sense would seem to justify Russia's aggression. I mean, if the Russians can take a neighboring piece of territory and the Americans do the same, what's the difference other than the United States is intimidating its neighbors into doing it rather than outright conquest? It's still a kind of forcible annexation. So Trump has, in a sense, been a great gift to the old, foreign affairs hands in New Delhi who have dreamt about, non-aligned foreign policy and worry about getting too close to the Americans. Trump has given every justification to those people. As I said, I don't think it's going to last. And I think what Trump is doing is profoundly not in America's best interests. But there we are. And so India's position seems more understandable.
Yes. I mean, look, New Delhi, India has justified the relationship with Russia, citing practicalities. But I want to ask you, Russia is pretty much yoked to China. If you just look over and see that relationship, and if one were to be practical, then one might take a sort of dim view of the Indian position, saying that, look, does India's relationship with Russia still guarantee it leverage over China? I mean, does it work? Does it compute?
So you're raising a very fundamental issue, and this is why I have been strongly in favor of a much closer American-Indian relationship. I believe that the fundamental geopolitical fact of the 21st century has been the rise of China, which is becoming essentially the most important peer rival to the United States in 100 years. The only real peer competitor that can compete at every level, technological, economic, military, political. And in that context, India needs to have a fundamental reassessment of its foreign policy, not a kind of incremental one. What China is trying to do is to build an alliance network that looks suspiciously like it is surrounding one country, which is India. Pakistan is now a satellite of China. Russia, as you say, is becoming a satellite of China. Afghanistan is likely to have much closer relations with China going forward. Myanmar, Burma, as we know, has much closer relations with China. They have tried to, through port acquisition, have a foothold in Sri Lanka. what does this look like? It looks like the encirclement of India. Frankly, that is other than Taiwan, that is the most important set of strategic moves that China has taken in the last 10 or 15 years. And it makes sense because China must view India as the other great power in Asia that it has to worry about. So in that context, it seems to me that India should be trying to develop a much stronger, closer relationship with the United States. And the virtue here is that India and Indian businesses would be delighted to see that. It would help India technologically, economically. Politically, they're both democracies. It's Indian civil society and American civil society could make broader alliances. It would be a kind of country-to-country, people-to-people alliance rather than just a state-to-state, a government-to-government alliance, which is always the most rich and enduring kind of relationship. So there's a very strong strategic rationale for it. My point is just, I can understand New Delhi's apprehension given the bizarre way in which Trump is behaving, self-defeating in my view toward America, but India has to take into account he is the president, he's going to be around for another 3 years.
And it's not just Trump, Mr. Zakaria. History tells us that the Americans haven't always been the most reliable allies, specifically in our part of the world, in the East. And perhaps, maybe, I don't know, Delhi therefore hedges its bets?
This is a common something you hear often about the United States, and I think what it misunderstands is the reality of democratic politics and a democratic superpower that naturally has shifts in political parties and as a result shifts in kind of the nuances of those policies. But actually, the United States has been, in its fundamental terms, extraordinarily consistent. Think about it. The United States built this world order in 1945.
Yeah.
It has been the guarantor of that order since 1945 for 80 years. What other country has had an 80-year strategy that it has fulfilled, not just in terms of talk, but in terms of actual security guarantees, expenditures, and such? U.S. soldiers are still on the banks of the Rhine. They are still in Okinawa, Japan. They are still in South Korea. They are still in all the places that they promised to be 80 years ago. What other country has been that consistent? The Soviet Union, which collapsed. Nazi Germany, which was around for 10 years. The imperial powers of Europe, which all had to decolonize and collapsed. I don't understand. This is a kind of common conventional wisdom that simply does not bear the test of serious analysis. The United States has been remarkably consistent. That's why Trump is such a strange aberration. Trump is trying to unravel some of this. We'll see if he succeeds in the long run.
Well, he's got 2.5 years left and a midterm election, so he may not, but who knows, he might stand again. Never know with Trump. But let me ask you, because, in a world where power often trumps values, does being a democracy help India or hold it back?
Oh, it powerfully helps India. I think, look, India couldn't be run in any way that was not a democracy. It's too big, it's too diverse, the states are too autonomous. I think if you were to try to run India as a dictatorship, it really wouldn't work. We did have a 2-year experience. I was living in India at the time, and it just did not. It was almost like something alien had been planted on the body politic. Remember, China is 95% Han Chinese. They all speak the same language. They're all the same ethnicity. It's very different. I think India has a great opportunity here, which is to be one of the world's leading democracies, to strengthen its democracy at home rather than weakening it in some areas, which I worry about a lot. Freedom of press, independence of judiciary, independence of election commission and institutions like that. These are areas where India should be moving to strengthen democracy, not weaken it. and it would be able to speak with a loud and clear voice. Look, at the end of the day, who sets the agenda in the world? It is still the world's major democracies, the United States, Britain, France, Germany. This is not an accident. It's because nobody thinks that, the world wants to go in the direction of Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping or Iran or South Korea or North Korea, right? There is enormous soft power that comes from having a government that is seen as sanctioned by the people, legitimized by the rule of law, and the independence of institutions. That's one of India's great strengths. And, look, for the last 30 years, India has engaged in economic reforms while being a democracy. It hasn't held it back. If you wanted to be very simple about this, India has grown roughly the same pace ever since they opened up the economy. If you look at the annual growth rates. And India is poorer than China now, basically because China began its reforms 10 years earlier, not because China was some crate, that its dictatorship allowed it to grow much faster. China began its reforms in 1979. India began its reforms in 1992. That is probably the single biggest explanation for China's outperformance, rather than the fact that they were a dictatorship. Yeah, they can build stuff faster, and their roads are more straight. There's a wonderful study which shows that in dictatorships, roads tend to be very straight, connecting two places, and in democracies, they tend to be very curvy because they have to take into account political constituents and, people and all that. I'm okay with having curvy roads if that respects the rights and dignity of people and it slows you down a bit. But India's done fine, and India will continue to do fine as a democracy.
Farid Zakaria, lovely speaking with you. Thank you very much for taking the time out. We spent 40 odd minutes with you and it's been riveting. Thank you.
Wonderful conversation. Thank you, Rob.